Hello, my name is Richard Badger. I'm a student at Alverno College in the Accelerated program, and today's project is in regards to if I had to share a plan on project management to somebody in the future working on a project, how would I share that information? So I'm going to kind of go through that today. So I'll be speaking to you today as if you are the person that I'm going to be instructing how to create a plan or go through the whole plan from the project management standpoint. As you can see, this is a very scaled version of what a project manager would actually go through. So although I have bulleted points here, I'm going to expound on each of these points. So the first thing as a project manager that you'll want to keep in mind is that you must know the objectives, but then you also want to know your circle of influence. And so as the project manager, you have a duty and responsibility to the project teams, managers, the resource managers, all the stakeholders that are involved, including sponsors, your local, state, sometimes federal government, municipalities. Then also at the end, you have your customer. So you have the owner and their partners, the suppliers, etc. And so these are all the stakeholders. So when you talk about the objectives, we talk about the goals, the dates, and the budget. So within the objective, and this is prior to even setting up anything, this is kind of like you get the idea or somebody presents the idea to you. And so you want to kind of start developing your objectives at that point. So that way you at least have some benchmark of where to start once you begin to go into the other phases of your planning. So the objective, as I kind of painted out here, are the goals. And so the goals will essentially break down into a variety of things to include the dates and the budgets. But the goals ultimately end up being everything that you want to see happen from start to finish, exact and precise timelines being met. So you're going to create a schedule calendar, a reverse calendar, and a forward calendar. And we'll talk about those things. The dates that you're setting are going to be a variety of dates. So you have the dates of when the project will begin, the anticipated date that the project will be completed, but then you have several dates and benchmarks that fall within that area, within that scope. The budgets are critical. Learning what the budget amount is, what type of budget is going to be. Is it going to be a fluid budget? Is it going to be a hard budget? Are the numbers hard? And so getting to know what those things are. The budget is critical on the front end because depending on what project you're working on, the expansion and the extension and the intricacies of that project, there may be things that you need to order from day one in order to have, in order to meet the deadlines that you're going to set going forward. The next thing we're going to talk about are the timelines. The timelines kind of tie into the dates. Again, we're going to talk about the start of the project as well as the finish of the project, but then there's everything that's in between. When do you bring in your team of experts, your support staff? When you start bringing in contractors and your developers, those are going to be all the timelines that you're going to be creating. What are going to be the benchmarks? How do you set your benchmarks? And what are those windows for the benchmarks that are going to be laid out? And a benchmark might be something in regards to if you're actually building a bricks and mortar type of project. When is the foundation going to be broken? How long is that foundation going to take? If it's going to take 4 weeks, it's going to take 6 weeks. So you want to have a timeline centered on the foundation and then the framing, drywalls, windows, roofing, the interior structure, the fire systems. All those things will have timelines associated with it. So when you create your actual project management portfolio, your portfolio will have all the scopes of services and scopes of work within that portfolio. The location is going to be critically important because you want to know the location. Is the location going to be local? Is it going to be distant? Is it going to be international? So you want to know what the location is, and that's also going to have an impact on your timeline as well as your budget. There are going to be different taxes, different tax burdens, tax responsibilities based on whether you're local, whether you're international. There's going to be some different budget requirements and demands as it pertains to those things. Permit costs all those different municipalities have different things that they do whenever you're working on particularly bricks and mortar projects. And then lastly, talking about I'm calling it a committee, but the team that you assemble, you want to assemble a team of subject matter experts. So as a project manager, you don't have to know everything about everything that's going on with the project, but you do want to know a little bit about everything that's going on. But you do want to surround yourself with members that are going to be subject matter experts in that particular lane that they're in. Such would be the case. For your books, you want to have an accountant. So you definitely want to have a certified accountant that's going to kind of oversee the budget. Project manager as far as construction. So if it's a bricks and mortar project, again, if it's a bricks and mortar project, you want to have somebody who works in that space that will have more intimate details, more intimate knowledge of how construction projects work. So then that way they can communicate that to you, and then you can communicate that to the stakeholders, all the stakeholders involved. And so each of your committee members will have an assignment, and each of your committee members, as the project manager, you'll assign your committee members with a variety of tasks and duties, and then you'll provide them with timelines and benchmarks to make sure that what they're doing, because there's going to be contracts with each of your committee members that in the areas that they're responsible for. So you want to make sure that they're meeting their benchmarks, so that way as the budget is being calculated and you're starting to pull and withdraw from the budget, that you're paying for the services that were contracted to do. So the duties, your meetings are going to happen. You're not necessarily going to have meetings with 100% of your team member at all times. Your meetings are going to be, you'll have a variety of meetings and sit downs. It's going to really be based on where you are within the project. On the front end of the project, you'll have a sit down with the bulk of your team, just because you want to lay out everything, the big picture conversation. And that way questions can be asked within that conversation. The vendors can get to know who one another are, and then they can begin to coordinate and talk amongst themselves, so that they can coordinate so that they're not bumping heads on their particular projects, and that there's unison. There's a clean passing of the baton from one trade to the next trade. So each of these meetings that you'll have ultimately, again, will be broken down based on where you are in the project. Overall, as the project manager, you want to make sure that you stay on top of every area within the project. Have a clear idea of what the objective is. That is so vitally important. And make sure that all your reporting is very detailed for you and your portfolio, but as you present it to your stakeholders, that you're able to scale it down and report out in layman's terms. And or know your audience. Some contractors or some stakeholders and customers may want the exact terminology, and that's fine. But you just want to make sure that you have at least a working knowledge on everything that's happening within the project. Again, you don't have to be an expert in everything, but you do want to have some knowledge in all the category spaces. But surround yourself with brilliant people. There are some other areas within project management that we can go into down the road. But if you have questions, definitely available to answer any questions that you have. And again, this is a very short snapshot of what the expectations, the do's and don'ts of project management. Thank you.